the God delusion?
Yes, I mean, I think that there are people who assume that this must be another atheistic book. Mm-hmm. It's an anti-creationist book, it's a pro-evolution book, but there's nothing in it that should bother a clergyman who is a sort of well-educated clergyman who necessarily accepts the evidence for evolution, because you can't be well-educated and not accept the evidence for evolution.
Wait, did you learn anything when you wrote the book? I mean, just the process undertakes such a...
Yeah, you bet I did, yes.
What did you learn?
Yes. I learned about bacteria, I learned about a lot of new research that's going on and which I read up and put in the book.
I heard you talk about going to Europe and that saying that you're received differently in Europe, and that's hard. Is it becoming more difficult for you to kind of get what you say across there because of the rise in certain kind of religion?
Well, you're referring to Islam, no doubt.
Yeah, well, Islam is certainly growing with immigration, right?
Yes, that's right. It's a serious problem, and my colleagues who lecture in Britain, I don't know about Europe, but in Britain, and I think it's even worse in Europe, in Britain there are close-minded students who have been taught the Quran is literally true, and therefore evolution can't be true, and they kind of just fold their arms and refuse to listen when my colleagues are attempting to teach what is the fundamental theorem of biology.
And so, and Islam, Christianity, the same thing. Are you finding that as time goes on, though, that you're able to reach more and more people?
Yes, I think so. I've got to be optimistic about that. I think the internet is enormously helpful. It's completely changed the way humans conduct their affairs, and you can get such a feeling for the buzz that's going around the whole of human life.
You've been this guy, and I wondered if it ever wears on you. The fact that we sort of joked about the Pope of Atheism in the bio. We referred to you as other people have called you Darwin's Rottweiler, which is also kind of a funny title.
Well, I'm rather a gentle soul, really. I mean, I don't feel like a Rottweiler. I think a lot of it is that people have read that I'm aggressive, mm-hmm. and that I'm strident and that I'm shrill. And they've never actually read anything I've written. They've never actually heard me speak. But they've seen propaganda, which is what it amounts to. It's saying that I'm strident and aggressive and shrill. And
you know, one of the challenges, I think, for doing what you do is that the Bible is actually written rather simply, in that parables explain realities. When you're trying to explain evolution to people, you know, and maybe perhaps open their minds to certain things, it's very difficult to do that in scientific terms and then make it easy for people to understand. Is that something you're aware of when you sit down?
It's nothing like as difficult as some physics. I mean, it's like not difficult like quantum physics or relativity. There are stumbling blocks. One stumbling block is the sheer length of time it takes, because we're familiar with the idea that you can change a little bit. You can breed pigeons. Darwin was very interested in breeding pigeons. Mm-hmm. You breed pigeons, and that takes a few centuries. If you imagine the amount of difference between pigeons in a couple of centuries and then extrapolate that to 100 million years, 200 million years, the human mind has no grasp of what a million years is, let alone 100 million years is. You just can't get your head around that. And it's important to try to do so, because otherwise you don't understand how you can go from a fish to a human. Mm-hmm. But you've got a hell of a lot of time in order to do that. When you think of what's been achieved in a few centuries with pigeons or dogs or cattle or cauliflowers.
Where in the evolutionary tree did the brain go that required some kind of spirituality? Because if we are chemical and we're compounds or all these things, people clearly, in a massive collective way, have these gods, and there's millions of these gods out there.
Well, I mean, the human brain started swelling up in a big way 2 or 3 million years ago. And our ancestors in those days were kind of upright walking chimpanzees. They had the brains of a chimpanzee, but they walked on their hind legs. So somewhere during the last 3 million years, all sorts of strange new things happened, like language, poetry, mathematics, philosophy, spirituality, as you've called it. And that could be really quite recent, I don't know.
And just somewhere under the brain, the chemicals, in your opinion, just fired in a certain way?
It's not so much chemicals. I mean, I think it's just the sheer number of neurons, probably, the gigantic population of nerve cells in the human brain.
One of the things about the stumbling blocks that I can see people having with religion, many of the organized religions, is that it assumes that to subscribe to any religion is to assume we are the only people in the universe. This earth exists and it is just us as gods. And I wondered, that always to me just limits what could possibly be out there in the beyond. Darwin and yourself, the view of of other life forms on other planets. How do you approach that?
I think it's very likely that there are other life forms on other planets, just for statistical reasons. The number of planets is so enormous. It's not necessarily true, though. It would be quite an interesting speculation to think, what if this really is the only planet in the universe that has life? We really are utterly alone. What would follow from that is that the origin of life, the event, the singularity that gave rise to the first living thing, must have been a stupendously unlikely, improbable event, which means that when we try to work out what happened in that moment, 3.8 billion years ago, whenever it was, we might be completely wasting our time even thinking about it, if we're the only planet in the universe that has life. Because if the origin of life was a probable event, then the universe should be crawling with life.
Right.
And maybe we should have been visited by now.
What do you... The thing, when I went through the book, and I read The God Delusion as well, and I've talked to people who are, religious people, and there's some who just quickly dismiss what you write, and others who are far more open to it. I always wondered about getting through the night, and how does evolution get people through the night? And that just seems to be one of the big reasons why people connect to a religion, is the fact that there is more to life than just this.
There's no obligation on anything to get you through the night. If you can't get through the night, that's tough. It doesn't follow that because something gets you through the night, it's true.
Right.
It would be nice if it was, but what's nice isn't necessarily what's there.
Right.
However, I don't find it difficult to get through the night. I mean, I find the privilege of existence, the fact that I'm here, and the odds against my being here and your being here are just astronomical and staggering. So we are very, very lucky to be here. We won't be here forever. Let's make the most of it, and let's enjoy life, let's take an interest in life, let's appreciate life, and that's what gets us through the night.
I wonder if you walk down the street, though, because your books are so influential now to a group of people, that there are enough parents out there who don't subscribe to what you believe in, who really are challenged by what you do. It used to be they were afraid of Metallica. Now they're afraid of you.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know whether that's really true.
Oh, it's true. It's absolutely true, because you're challenging. What happens is you arm the kids to go home and have conversations with their parents in a way they wouldn't otherwise be armed.
Oh, I can't be sorry about that. I mean, that's got to be a good thing, hasn't it? It really has.
Certainly.
If I'm arming children to go and argue with their parents, oh, what could be better than that?
All right, so we talked to Richard Dawkins, the author and agent. Stick around. Up next, we're going to talk about Richard Dawkins, the man, right after this.